gang, Act 2. Banquo and Fleance, with a torch before him, they're still inside Macbeth's castle. It just finished where the king had come to congratulate Macbeth and pay him honor, and they were at his castle in Inverness, and that is where we pick up. It is bedtime, and we've got Banquo and his son out, sort of doing the last watch before they go to bed. How goes the night, boy? The moon is down, I have not heard the clock, and she goes down at 12. I take it 'tis later, sir. Hold, take my sword. There's husbandry in heaven, their candles are all out. Remembering that Shakespeare always writes in metaphor, their candles, the stars, they're all out right now, and we always look to the setting of the atmosphere and the weather for that pathetic fallacy. So if the stars are out, he's making that point for a reason. Take thee that too. A heavy summons lies like lead upon me, and yet I would not sleep. Merciful powers, restrain me in me the cursed thoughts that nature gives way to in repose. So he's having thoughts. Maybe he doesn't like what he's been thinking about, but clearly he's looking at the sky and he's having some sort of foreboding. Give me my sword, who's there? And Macbeth had entered. A friend. What, sir, not yet at rest? The king's abed. He hath been an unusual pleasure, and sent forth great largesse to your offices. This diamond he greet your wife withal by the name of most kind hostess, and shut up in measureless content. The king is such a good fella, and he is really happy he's won this battle against the traitors who would take over his country. Macbeth is being celebrated. He's given largesse to your offices, so he's been giving him, maybe it's jewels and money, but if not, it certainly is titles and offices. And as the lord of any area, the laird, the thane, he would be receiving taxation money, and he would be great honor. And so the king has just piled on these honors on Macbeth. Being unprepared, our will became the servant defect, which else should free have wrought. All's well. I dreamt last night of the three weird sisters. So W-E-I-R-D, sometimes spelled W-Y-R-D, and those are those three sisters. I don't have to explain to you who they are. To you they have showed some truth. So Banquo's sort of prodding Macbeth here to talk about it a little more. And listen to how Macbeth responds. See if you believe him. I think not of them. Yet, when we can entreat an hour to serve, we would spend it in some words upon that business, if you would grant the time, at your kindest leisure. If you shall cleave to my consent, when 'tis it should make honor for you. So I lose none in seeking to augment it, but still keep my bosom franchised and allegiance clear, I shall be counselled. Okay, that seems like a throwaway line. It doesn't seem to have any importance to it. We might have just skipped over it. But I want to look at this one. Banquo just told Macbeth that he'd love to talk about the witches and what their prophecies would bring to them both. But then he has a, what's the word I'm looking for? He's got a requisite, a prerequisite. As long as he keeps my bosom franchised and allegiance clear, as long as my heart and my allegiances are clear, my conscience is clear, I will be counseled. And so he has this moral code. And so Macbeth says good night to him. Good repose the while, thanks, sir, the like to you. And they leave. And so then Macbeth tells his servant, go bid thy mistress, when my drink is ready, she strike upon the bell, get thee to bed. And now we're going to look at one of the most important soliloquies in Macbeth. And I'm going to allow you guys in your posts to discuss this amongst yourselves. So I'm not going to give my opinion, but I am going to go through this so that we know what we're talking about. Is this a dagger which I see before me, the handle toward my hand? Come, let me clutch thee. So when he's by himself, he thinks he hallucinates a dagger floating in front of him. So already we're starting. Maybe it's a little bit of the otherworldly nature. We have witches that start the play. Maybe it's an hallucination. He's got a lot of stress on his mind, a lot of cognitive dissonance about the choices that he's making, but this is what he sees. And it's a soliloquy. He's talking to himself, so we don't think he's lying to himself for our benefit. We're not really there, right? So then when he clutches at it, he can't grab it. I have thee not, and yet I see thee still. Art thou not fatal vision, sensible to feeling as to sight? Or art thou but a dagger of the mind, a false creation proceeding from this heat-oppressed brain? And that seems to make sense. If he's stressed out, maybe he's hallucinating. I see thee yet in form as palpable as this which now I draw. So he takes out his own dagger and he sees them both just as clearly. Now the dagger turns and it points in a direction. Thou marshallest me the way that I was going, and such an instrument I was to use. Mine eyes are made the fools of the other senses, or else worth all the rest. I see thee still, and on thy blade in dudgeon gouts of blood, which was not there before, which was not so before. So he's seeing the hallucination change, and the hallucination now has drips and gouts. We've seen that word gouts when in Lord of the Flies, the boys are carrying the pig, and big globs of blood and guts are dropping from the pig. This is the same idea. It's huge amounts of blood dripping, pouring. There's no such thing. It is the bloody business which informs thus to mine eyes. Now, over the one half-world nature seems dead, and wicked dreams abuse the curtain sleep. Witchcraft celebrates pale Hecate's offering and withered murder, alarmed by his sentinel, the wolf, whose howls his watch, thus with his stealthy pace, with Tarquin's ravishing strides, toward the design moves like a ghost. Thou sure and firm set earth, hear not my steps, which way they walk, for fear thy very stones prate of my whereabout, and take the present horror from the time which now suits with it. Whiles I threat he lives, words to the heat of deeds too cold breath gives. And then, of course, the bell rings. That was the message that was supposed to be coming from Lady Macbeth. I go and it is done, the bell invites me. Hear it not, Duncan, for it is a knell that summons thee to heaven or to hell. Rhyming couplet in the scene. It does have his intention. He is going to commit the murder. He doesn't want anyone to hear him. Just like earlier in the play, he asks for darkness to hide his desires. This is going to be repeated throughout our play. Darkness and light, if you're keeping track of that. On to scene 2.